Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke to the media yesterday. And Kyle said there's one player from this year's draft class he is really excited about next season. We'll dive into that. Plus, what they said about injuries wasn't great. And we're here to remind you once again the real story about what's going on. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. That man is Johnny Dell from the Johnny Dell Football Academy. This is the demonetization station where we take a deep dive on 49ers film, and the NFL comes and takes all our money. Johnny, how are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. A little stuffed up, a little under the weather. People say I start acting like I'm on some scotch when I'm sick. I think those reports are way overblown.
Well, we appreciate
like the substation issue.
Yes, we'll get into the Niners injury situation in a little bit, but we appreciate you fighting through it as always. Look, normally on this show, we dive into the film from the game of the week. We break it down. I don't think anybody out there is interested in reliving that playoff loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Here's the breakdown. They returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. It was over after that.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it went sideways and sideways quick. Couldn't convert on fourth downs. You got receivers running into each other. You got offensive linemen turning into a turnstile. It was all sorts of no good.
It was belt to ass ugly. No question.
Yeah.
So
it was bad.
We're going to look ahead because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke to the media yesterday, and there was one comment from Kyle Shanahan that I thought was interesting and thought maybe we could look at that as we look ahead to 2026 and what is to come. Here is Kyle Shanahan. I will let his words speak for him.
I'm real excited about Jordan James. I wish we could have got him in there more. He was ready to go here like these last 6 weeks of the year, big time. There was an opportunity for him. But if he has the offseason that we think he's capable of and can improve, especially the way he looked here at the end of the year, feel very excited about him helping us.
Now, putting aside the fact that, of course, there was opportunity to play Jordan James. You're the head coach. You can play him literally anytime you want. You were running Christian McCafffrey in the Seahawks game down 41-6. But putting all that aside, he says Jordan James could help the team a lot in 2026, Johnny. I think he's going to have to because they soured on on Isaac Arendo. And Christian McCaffrey just had, 1,000 touches. He's going to get hurt next year, so they're going to need somebody to carry the football.
Yeah, and Brian Robinson's not under contract. I'll be surprised if they bring him back. Now they could pull we like him. He didn't get a training camp in. That's really tough. My issue with those statements are always, okay, but you still brought him in to be the number 2 back. And they tried to sell us on that this is a good addition at that point. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say this is both a really good addition when we do it, and then 3 months later in hindsight, turn around and say, well, you can't really expect much. The guy missed all off season. And you go, well, okay. But no, Jordan James, I do think that he was brought in to be more of the Christian McCaffrey style back. That before you used to see everybody had the very similar profiles as far as running backs. It was sub 4.4 speed. It was going to be 5'11" and under usually, and around 205 pounds was the kind of their running backs. And they were one cut gashing runners. And then we saw what Christian McCaffrey could bring to the passing game. And they were willing to take a hit on some of that home run speed for the other ball skills that are in there and guys that can run behind their pads. So this is after Christian McCaffrey has come out of the game, we're going to see a little draw play. And this is the kind of stuff that does make you excited about Jordan James, is that he reads blocks well and he runs behind his pads. Those are things when his running style, when you see him carry the ball, this reminds you of how Christian McCaffrey runs with the ball, that he's going to work this, read his blocks. He's reading these guys out, and he's going to then set this up and go. And when he sticks his nose in there, he's going to run hard behind those pads, drop that pad level and run behind it. That looks like Christian McCaffrey in how he moves in how he runs. I'm not saying he's Christian McCaffrey, but the play style reminds you of Christian McCaffrey. And then here you're going to see him in short yardage. I like the decisiveness here. He's going to see the hole, and he's going to, again, run behind his pads. He's just trying to get those tough yards. He's not bouncing around trying to look for a hole. He sees it, and he's going to attack it. So Pooney gets moonwalked here. Dominic Pooney's got to get some competition this offseason because he just gets walked back about 2 yards into the backfield. I mean, that's not good. When you are that much farther back than Jake Brendel on the line, you're not doing your job real well. So, but Isaac Garendo, Jordan James is going to stick his nose in here. He says, this is short yardage. We just need like 3 yards, and he's going to run behind his pads. I love that. So, those are things that you really like seeing with the kid. He understands the situation. Moment's not too big. Get in there, drive with those legs. Love it. Because we ended up getting a first down off of a quarterback sneak right after this. Here's what he also brings is that he understands he's got to abort his run fake when there's a blown pass protection here. This is, again, Dominic Pooney. I'm hoping Pooney's trajectory is more Diamador Lenore than it would be Ambry Thomas. Ambry Thomas had a really strong end of his rookie year and then hit that sophomore slump and then never came out of it. Diamador Lenore started out really great his rookie year. Then they yanked him, after the Green Bay game, and his sophomore season, he came back and it was ascending, and then he ascended ever since then. But here, they're running a check on this where they're trying to read the mic. And so his eyes have got to be to that mic, because if the mic comes, then Brendel's going to go pick him up, and Dom's got the defensive tackle one-on-one, even if he slants inside. And then that's going to be Jordan James if they bring this and he's unaccounted for, or there should be a slide down to pick these guys up. What there should be. So, really they want Jordan James to fake this run and then leak out to help with the pattern here. But what you have is Pooney doesn't read this linebacker. So when this slants across, he's going to try and pick it up. That should be handed off to Brendel, because you see Brendel's eyes are coming straight over after the linebacker doesn't come on a blitz. So Pooney should pick this up, and you should have these picked up with your tackle and tight end. This is just a mental error off guard. So then the guy comes through. So Jordan James has got to then late abort, tries to go at his legs, and Purdy's flushing, right? Ideally, you would have Jordan James to be coming out here and he's a target for Brock. But I do like the awareness of, not just running the play as it was originally called, being able to recognize that's a blitz. I got to protect my quarterback on this and abort that fake and try and hold that guy up. So I like those things.
Yeah, and Kyle likes those things too. That's a little thing that Kyle's going to notice that, the average fan is not going to notice unless they dive into the film like we are. But Kyle sees that, and that's going to give him confidence to give him more carries. And we know, if Kyle doesn't think you can play, he's not putting you in there under any stretch of the imagination. So every little thing that Jordan James can do, even in this limited sample, is going to help him get on the field next year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that if you can't protect the quarterback in those situations, they're not going to let you see the field. That's just the nature of what it is. They're not, they just paid Brock Purdy over $50 million a year. They're not going to let you out there and have him get his rear end blown up. So then here's what you also like is awareness in the passing game. So we're going to run this as a nice little progression read. So you got a little high-o concept out here with the go, and then a Tony route, and then you're going to run a stick route along with it. So you're going to get a nice 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's the fourth read in the play. He's got to understand he's supposed to either sit down if this guy comes way out here. If this guy stays in, then he's got to run away from him. And so I like the ability to read this out. He's going to read that linebacker and say, okay, I can't sit down. I got to move. And Brock works through these progressions. He sees, okay, those are all taken away, and he's going to hit Jordan James. And again, the awareness, here's the first down. Here's the line of scrimmage. Here's the first down marker. So he's going to get this. And a lot of times you see these guys will go, oh, and they try and run around this guy and they dance around, continually trying to get more yards, and they'll get tackled somewhere around here, right? So like you see that far too often. We see that with like Juwan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne do that.
Yep.
Here, he's going to catch it. He sees this guy here and he's going to say, I need to get vertical. And he goes and he picks up the first down. It's a little thing, but it's a big thing. It's like he's not trying to get every yard. He's trying to get as the positive yards.
Well, and think about the earlier possession in this game, right? Niners get to 3rd and 1 on their first possession. They can't pick it up short yardage. They get to 4th and 1. They run that stupid option play. They don't pick it up. They turn the ball over on downs. None of that happens if you do what Jordan James did there and just get the damn first down in the first place.
100%. I mean, so we can sometimes look at a little like 6-yard play and go, okay, whatever, 6-yard play. Look, it keeps the offense going. And against this team, you have to be patient and you have to get those 6-yard gains. Otherwise, you're screwed. Like what happened earlier in the game and throughout much of the game. So love that. I really like how he runs this. We're going to run a wide zone. Now, this is after the game is already set. Okay, so Seattle's got some backups in. We've got Mac Jones in. This is still our starting offensive line, though. I love how he runs this with conviction. He almost breaks this one. Like if he breaks that arm tackle, this would be a real nice gain. But I like how he sees it. He runs with conviction, runs with good balance. You'll see that from the end zone. I mean, because he nearly squirts through there. And then, he's almost to one-on-one with this safety. We're talking about 10, 15-yard gain. You just squirt through there a little bit more. But from the end zone, watch the balance that he's going to run with. He keeps his hips low, which is a trait you like. He's going to keep these hips low, and he runs with great balance. He's going to see it. Choppy feet. I love it. That's what helps keeps that balance, keeps him ready to cut. He's not overstepping these things. He's going to attack it. He's able to kind of, wiggle around a little bit and hit the hole, and he gets positive yards. Again, these are things that to me, it's like, again, something that doesn't look like a big deal. But when you see Brian Robinson, that looks better than Brian Robinson running our wide zone.
I was never a fan of Brian Robinson once I actually saw him in San Francisco. I didn't think he was anything special. I would much rather see them give it to Guerendo, give it to Jordan James next year. And I know Jordan James is not like a huge home run hitter, and that's fine. If he can pick up what's there and just do that job, I feel like that's all you need. And he can be a receiving threat in a way that Brian Robinson wasn't. I'm good with that. I don't need him to be, Christian McCaffrey. Of course, it'd be great if he was, but who is? I'm just fine with a solid backup player because I don't want the 49ers to have to go out and spend more resources on another running back, right? You drafted Guerendo. You drafted Jordan James. You're paying Christian McCaffrey a lot. Then they had to go out and trade for Brian Robinson. It's like, damn, man. Like, aren't we good enough where we are? Can't we trust these guys that we drafted for a reason?
Yeah. Now, Kyle is notorious for not playing rookie running backs unless he absolutely has to. And Isaac Guerendo is the cautionary tale. He played a lot last year and he was not good. There was a reason he fell down the depth chart this year that he did. He struggles in this wide zone. He struggles finding space on the field. Don't love it. To me, we talked about this in the offseason. I felt that Jordan James would be ahead of Isaac Guerendo come when he was healthy. Mm-hmm. And it exactly proved out to be that way. He looked better coming out of college, and I think he's going to be stronger going forward. This is a learning moment for him. He gets a good run, but this is where the 49ers detail in their run game is just different. So he's setting an attack angle at the outside leg of Colton McKivitz. He's got to have this as a targeting point more out here. He's got to target a little bit wider. And you'll see why, because as this develops, you get a good seal off here from McKivitz. You want to force this guy to respect wider earlier. So this track needs to be a little bit wider, make him feel like I have to respect this and gain a little bit more width and set up use check for his block here because he's first going to help and then he's got to go seal off. So you need to move this guy just a little bit. He's targeting here, needs to be targeted more to the tight end. And so move that guy a little bit. That'll also make the safety force him to attack a little bit wider. This is one of the details that the 49ers are usually really hard on, is set those guys wide, attack and press the edge wide, because they get smaller offensive linemen that are more mobile. Connor Colby right here, he was drafted because his mobility skills were some of the top in the class. He's not a great pass protector. We saw that when he was in there, but his mobility skills are there. The 49ers, when they run this wide zone, they run down the line. And so that means you want to take advantage of that by pressing the edge harder, getting these guys to move. That always does that, and move these guys out there. And then you might have an explosive here. You get this guy moved a little bit over. You get this guy moved a little bit over. Boom, you're coming through here, and this is an explosive. So it's a little detail. He still gets positive yards, but just, set that track a little bit harder, attack the edge a little bit harder. I'm sure Bobby Turner was going to be all over him for that.
I feel like that's a run too, where you get that look in college. You're like, oh, here I go. I'm off to the races. In the NFL, that closes up way faster. And if you don't set it up right, you really sort of minimize what potentially is there. But you got to know what you're looking at when you see it. And to me, the only way that you learn that is by doing it, is by seeing, oh, damn, that looked like a huge hole and I didn't get nearly enough out of that. What happened? And then you learn. So the next time you see it in an actual game, not just on film, you have that picture in your mind of, oh, I've seen this before and I know what to do now.
100%. Kyle's just one of those guys that he sees every drive and every play is so important that he goes, well, I'm not going to let a guy be out there and do that. If I got a chance to have somebody in there that can set up that explosive, I'm going to put it in there. But I'm like, look, you weren't getting explosives all year anyways. So, let him get in there, get some positive yards. I know they were trying to evaluate Brian Robinson on the year, but this kid just, again, to me, looks much better in your system. He's still got a little ways to go. This is another example. He gets positive yards, but again, needs to set the track a little bit wider. So they're taught aim for this outside foot of the tight end. That's where they're taught on this over and over. It becomes harder when you see these things going. Now, he's initially good. He's going to then turn this up a little bit too soon. You need to press the line, get this guy moving, and let Connor Colby kick him down. But he tries to cut it up a little bit sooner, and it's too condensed. Okay, spread that out, attack the edge a little bit harder, just a hair longer. I mean, the detail is really tight here. Just a hair longer. That's going to open that hole just a little bit more.
It's a really interesting shot too, because people would look at that and be like, oh, it's a 2-yard carry, 3-yard carry, whatever it was. Oh, the blocking needs to get better. The line needs to get better. It's like, no, actually, it could have been a lot more that was there, but the running back himself, didn't necessarily do the right thing. I think sometimes we don't take that into consideration when we're trying to look at how effective this certain running game is. We all blame the offensive line. It's only their fault. It's like, no, there's levels to this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, to his credit, I guess Chris Forster's been hammering that drum for a while. People talk about offensive line blocking, and he'll go, well, there's a lot of things go into that. Sometimes it's a wide receiver, the running back's got to be on the right track, and they got to set things up and press the line the right way, and all that stuff. He said that, but it does kind of get lost in the thing. Now, that being said, the offensive line was not good enough in this game by a mile. Yes. It's not to say the offensive line played well in any sort of stretch of the imagination. They were terrible in that game.
I came prepared with a Jordan James stat that I hope you're going to enjoy. If you add up all the carries that Jordan James got in college and all the receptions that Jordan James got in college, you take everything and you add it together, it is still 15 fewer touches than Christian McCaffrey got this season.
Jeez.
It is ridiculous. 435 career touches in the pros and in college for Jordan James. 450 touches this year for Christian McCaffrey.
Wow. McCaffrey can't continue having that load. Now, he talked about that this was the hardest season of his career. And I don't think it was just, because of what he was going through. It was, I think, because of what the offense was going through. There was no space for him. It had to be so frustrating game after game to feel like you're running into a brick wall because you don't have anybody on the offensive side of the ball that opens up the run game. Your run blocking has been sketchy all year. And in the passing game, you are the only one creating space for other people. Like there was nobody else. I mean, sometimes George Kittle, but he was also hobbled half the year, and then obviously gone there by the end of the year. But I mean, it was like Christian McCaffrey was our offense almost the entire season, and that's why his yards per carry were lower. Didn't start getting the explosives until the end of the year. I mean, it just had to be so frustrating.
And you have to assume he's going to be hurt next year, because when guys get that many touches, especially at his age, they break down the following season. That's just a fact of NFL life. So the Niners have to brace for that, and they better be prepared for that right now. I don't want to hear, oh, well, Christian McCaffrey got hurt. Guess what? Plan on it now, because that's probably what is going to happen. And we're speaking of injuries, Johnny. We're going to have to restate something that you've brought up multiple times. You educated me on it. Because John Lynch is still trying to sell you some fiction, and it's very, very irritating because it doesn't match with the reality of the situation. And I think that most 49er fans don't know the reality of the situation, and they should, because if we're going to understand the problems with this team and what's going on with this team, we need to. We're going to get to that in 1 second. But before we do, just want to give a shout out to Sleeper. Again, Sleeper, thank you for hopping on board. We make all our picks with Sleeper, and you should too. Download the app, sign up now. You'll get a free $20 entry. You can see on the screen. It's super easy. Make your picks, fantasy, get your news on the app as well. Whatever you want, it's all there for you. If you make picks, super easy. Just choose higher or lower on a bunch of different stats in a bunch of different sports. And if you get your picks right, you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So go check it out now. Have a little fun. And if you deposit money, you can see our code on the screen, GSP. You'll get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So please use our code GSP. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. So check out Sleeper today. Now, Johnny, first question of the press conference yesterday, which it absolutely...
I was so excited.
Yes, it should have been. First question, John Lynch. Are you going to do anything at all to improve? Let me get the actual quote so I get it right. So much scrutiny around the injury situation. Is there anything being considered, or will anything be done this offseason to make changes organizationally when it comes to those areas, including injury prevention? And what John Lynch essentially said was, we have good people. Injuries are part of football, but we'll look at everything. How did you feel when he said that, Johnny?
I felt like it was total BS. And it's just ignoring the data, because to sit there and say, injuries are just part of football ignores that you have been one of the top 10 most injured teams in 8 of the last 9 years. You can't tell me. I mean, that's the old line from was it Batman versus Superman? You're giving me a jar of pee and telling me that it's sweet tea or something, or peach tea. That you're sitting there trying to sell me that, well, injuries are just part of football. Look, this just happens. There are 31 other teams still playing football. There are 31 other teams that are playing a physical game, that are practicing in the offseason. Why are you more injured than all of them? We're not saying you shouldn't be injured at all. Injuries are part of football. There's a 99% or it's 100% injury rate if you're in the league for more than 4 years. Okay, that's NFL. College, 97% of guys coming out of in the draft have had an injury in college. So I'm not asking you to draft guys that have never had an injury. I'm not asking you to never have anybody injured. The question is, why are you consistently more injured than everybody else? And I've run the data on it, on what is the likelihood of a single team among 32 being just top 10 in a category by randomization. Okay, because if injuries are just part of football, it should affect every team equally. Okay, and even if it was a slight deviance, like you can understand that. Okay, well, that is the luck part of it, right? Sometimes you do have data groupings, but the likelihood that a single team would, out of 32, would be top 10 in 8 out of 9 years by pure randomization of chance is the likelihood of 1 in 1,792. The league would have to, like the league would have to play for over 17,000 years to see a data cluster like what has happened in San Francisco for the last 9 years happen again just by random chance. Like, it is not just, well, injuries are part of football. No, you are consistently one of the worst at this. And people say, well, what? You don't want Fred, you think there's something they could have done to prevent Fred Warner? I'm not talking about Fred Warner.
Right.
I'm talking about the 17 or 18 hamstring injuries the team had going back to OTAs and training camp when the league average is 5 hamstring injuries a year. That's league average is 5.3 hamstring injuries per team per year. They had 18 this year because Jacob Cowing re-injured his 4 times.
And people put that like just on Cowing. They make it like a personal failing of Cowing. And maybe some of that is on the individual player. But when you look at the totality of these things, it's not on the individual player. You mentioned don't draft guys with injury history. Ricky Pearsall never missed a game in college. He didn't miss a game in college. And now people are like, he's made of glass. He's the most injury prone player. So even when they go out of their way to draft people with no injury history, they become injury prone in San Francisco. And that is the scariest part of all. By the way, Joseph Ehrenberg says Lynch is an all-pro at saying a lot and nothing at all. Totally agree. But
Well, I mean, like,
go ahead.
Like Connor Colby, he didn't get hardly injured at all at Iowa. His first week with the starting group where he's getting the majority of the practice reps, pulled groin. If we remember back that it was week 2, it was like he popped up on the injury report, pulled groin. If you go to just the hamstring thing, Jacob Cowing in OTAs that was supposed to be so minor that they were just holding him out at the end of OTAs for precaution, and he started camp 5 days late because they were still working him back from his hamstring 6 weeks later. You had Jacob Cowing pulled it like the first day. Renardo Green pulled a hamstring. Isaac Arendo pulled a hamstring. I'm trying to remember who else pulled a hamstring there pretty early. It seemed like everybody during the season. Jake Brendel, Bryce Huff, Trent Williams, George Kittle. Like there were so many hamstring injuries that you go, and hamstring and groin injuries are seen as some of the most preventable by proper player health protocols, being regeneration, rest, recovery, hydration, injury prevention training protocols. And Tatum Bethune tore his groin week 18, right? So like, I mean, you just have the 49ers are consistently top 5 in hamstring and groin injuries. And people say, well, what do you want them to do? They've already cleaned house 3 times. No, they haven't. What happened was in 2017, they came in and there was the holdover staff that I remember it was back. I think it was Mike Singletary his last year. I want to say the 49ers longtime strength and conditioning guy retired, and they brought in Ray Wright and Jeff Ferguson, and he was there through Harbaugh and through Tom Sula and Chip Kelly, and then Kyle got in there. They were 2 years. The first year they brought him in, though, John Lynch brought in Dustin Perry, who he had worked with in Denver. And after 2 years, the 49ers were horribly injured, right? So what did Kyle and John do? They said, well, we're going to fire Ray Wright and Jeff Ferguson. They promoted Dustin Perry from assistant strength and conditioning coach to head of strength and conditioning. They hired Ben Peterson from the NHL Flyers to come in and be their head of player health. Okay, so those two worked together. It was in 2022, they were both promoted from head of strength and conditioning and head of player health to vice president of player health and vice president of strength and conditioning. It was announced, 49ers announced new vice president of strength and conditioning and new vice president of player health. They were not new. They were internally promoted after 3 years of being one of the most injured teams in the league. Make that make sense. And then they have 2023. They're finally a top 5 healthy team, go to the Super Bowl. Ben Peterson gets hired away to the Atlanta Hawks. Dustin Perry is then promoted from VP of strength and conditioning to VP of player health. And he is their VP of player health to this day. You can go to their website and it shows he has been with the organization since 2017. But because of the way, and I get it, not everybody's following who Dustin Perry is in the organization and his career trajectory. But we've all been under the assumption, because of how it's reported, that they have just cleaned house and they brought in new guys. No, they haven't. It has been the same approach, the same formula, the same people running the show for a long time.
That's the biggest thing. They've changed titles. They haven't changed philosophies. They haven't changed program. And just listen to in the press release when the 49ers named Dustin Perry vice president of player health and performance, because I got it right here in front of me. Perry will oversee sports medicine, strength and conditioning, player rehab, functional performance, and nutrition. In his role, he will manage and orchestrate all available resources to ensure 49ers players are provided the best standard of care with the goal of maximizing their performance and availability. How has the 49ers strength and conditioning been? Right? Kyle Shanahan said, Jordan Watkins had a high ankle sprain. Then it took him 3 weeks to get back into player shape. 3 weeks. What the hell kind of program are they running where it takes an NFL football player 3 weeks to get back into shape after an injury? I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's got to change. It has to. It has to change because you have nothing to lose by changing it, right? Let's say you fire everybody, fire the whole training staff, bring in all new training staff, and they're just as bad. You're in the exact same spot you're in now, but at least you've given yourself a chance to improve. And I don't understand how this team, who's had so many injuries, who has a legitimate argument to make that the reason they don't have a Lombardi trophy in their trophy case is because of the injuries that they have sustained, but they don't change anything. And to me, Johnny, points to one thing: laziness. I think it's laziness. Just like with this defensive coordinator search. Kyle Shanahan said yesterday, I wish Robert Saleh was here so I could go on vacation. Well, we're not going to cast a wide net for defensive coordinator. Now we're just going to go with Gus Bradley, just like they went with Nick Sorensen. I think it's laziness. I really do, because there's no other explanation for it other than this is just the path of least resistance.
Well, that or, there's some sort of personal loyalty there. Like I said, John Lynch had worked with Dustin Perry in Denver. And look, I am not somebody who calls for people to lose their jobs lightly. The fact is, though, when your job is literally, the title is player health, and you are one of the worst teams, you are the worst team as far as player health under your leadership, there is no way you can justify you staying in that role. The only thing that would make any sense to me is he's selling it on players are not doing what they're supposed to do when they're away from the team to train right, to keep their bodies right. We can't babysit these guys all the time. I get that. But the Philadelphia Eagles came into the wild card round of the playoffs with 21 of 22 starters, nearly 22, with Lane Johnson working back from a LaFranc injury that normally knocks you out for 3 months. But they had 21 of 22 starters available. That's a team that we for years looked at them and said, man, why is it that they never have the bad luck that the 49ers do with injuries? We've said the same thing about the Chiefs. Every year we're like, why is it that the Chiefs just seem like they never get hurt? The Rams. Why is it the Rams just seem to always have all their guys all the time? It was like when we went and played the Thursday night game against them, the Rams were 32nd in the league as far as cap dollars on injured reserve. The 49ers were first in the league in cap dollars on injured reserve. Now the 49ers still won, amazingly, but you are playing with such a disadvantage when you have you're already dealing with the dead cap. You have all this money on IR, and then you're playing a team that is consistently really healthy. What was Seattle? You look at that. What major injury did they have on defense or offense coming into that game? They lost Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet in the game. But other than that, they just got Charles Cross back, and their entire offensive line was healthy. Their receiving core was healthy. Their defense was very healthy. You can't tell me they don't play physical football. Like, this isn't just we play really physical. We're a hard team. There's teams that do that, and they don't have the injury history that the 49ers do. I can't be on board with saying, well, it's just injuries are part of the game, because it's like you've said, they start acting like they're victims of circumstance. But this is not one of those situations. And I feel like somebody's putting the blame on the players, but it's, your job is player health, and we are not seeing any improvement in that area. You have one outlier year, and they talk about that year like it was the one that determined it all. And I go, yeah, because you were blowing every team out, and you had your starters weren't even playing most of the last of the halves of fourth quarters. Like, so you're reducing their exposure to injury. So the proper approach for injury prevention for this team is that you have to be 10 times more talented than the rest of the league and blowing everybody out. That seems like a sketchy plan. That's a plan that's not going to work out very often.
I mean, just this line from Lynch. We've spent a lot of time and effort in recruiting really quality people, and I think being at the forefront of injury prevention. Like, that's just not reality, dude. You've had way more injuries than everybody else. That to me is a guy that is just rushing to defend people that he doesn't want to get rid of. And I agree with you. I don't like calling for people's jobs, but guess what? If Kyle Shanahan didn't win a ton of games, he would get fired. Nick Sorensen was a terrible defensive coordinator. He got fired. When guys don't perform, they lose their jobs. If this training staff wants to keep their jobs, they need to keep the players healthier. I'm sorry. That's just the reality. It applies to everybody evenly in the organization. Jake Moody didn't do his job. Guess what? He got fired. What? We have to protect the training staff? I really do not understand it from John Lynch. Like, it's absurd. They're defending it. They're defending it. They think they've been victims of circumstance for this long, for a decade. And I don't know how Kyle Shanahan can live with it. Like, I really don't know how he can say.
Well, and how he gets defensive. Because, I mean, he'll get snippy about it of like, oh, I guess we should, tell Ricky Pearsall not to fall wrong on his knee. I'm like, no, that's not the issue. The issue is, why has Jordan Watkins been out almost the entire season and not getting the reps? You had to cut your training camp short because you had so many injuries, and you said, I've never seen anything like this in my entire career. Like that should be a wake-up call. I remember, I think it was Vish, actually, had Jaquaski Tart on for an interview. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And Tart talked about, because he was in the Eagles training camp that year, and he talked about how he thought when he was in San Francisco that they took good care of the players. And then, and this was after Dustin Perry and Ben Peterson had been there for 3 years, that he said, then he went to the Eagles and he saw it was nowhere close. He was like, the way that they, if I remember how the what he said right, and we can probably ask Vish about it. He might remember a little bit more because it's 3 or 4 years ago. But I remember him saying that the way that the Eagles managed the players' bodies, they felt so much more fresh than he ever felt in San Francisco. Like, he's like, I would wake up and sometimes, just something's hurting and you don't even know why. But with the Eagles, he was like, you feel fresh and ready to go on game day. Like, you don't wake up with weird things happening. And so, you look at that and you say, okay. And then you align that with what, with the Eagles being so healthy. And you look at what Kellen Moore did, right? Kellen Moore went to the Saints this last offseason. The Saints were the number one most injured team. They were actually more injured than the 49ers in 2024. Kellen Moore went to the Saints, looked at their injury problem and said, there's far too many soft tissue injuries than can be excusable. And he fired actually a really well-known guy who had been at Alabama and had helped Alabama reduce their soft tissue injuries. But he fired the guy and brought in Ted Rath. Ted Rath had worked with the Eagles. Before that, he was the guy that used to be on the sidelines with Sean McVay that was always pulling him back on the sideline. They called him Sean McVay's get back guy. Mm-hmm. That was Ted Rath. He'd worked with the Rams, then he went to the Eagles, and then Kellen Moore hired him last offseason to head up the Saints' training and player health program. The Saints were the 15th most injured team in the league this year. So they went from 32nd to 15th. How many times have we sat here at the end of the year and said the 49ers were just middle of the league as far as injury prevention? Then this would be a team that would seem almost unstoppable. There is not a reasonable explanation for why Dre Greenlaw tears an Achilles running onto the field after halftime. The only explanation for that is that there are micro tears. There's a nagging injury that has not been treated properly that is already there in the body, that when you just go to run, your Achilles pops, not even sprint. Like, that's what happens with George Kittle, is that he's had that ankle sprain. There's something there with the way that these guys have existing tears in the body. That's why they're tearing more ACLs. It's why they're having so many more soft tissue injuries. The 49ers have a 15 to 20% higher soft tissue injury rate than the rest of the league. They're lower in contact injuries, which aligns with what I think Chase Senior reported on it, that he had talked to somebody and they said the 49ers do have a different approach than most of the league. They emphasize mass and physicality because they play so physical and they want to be able to bang and not get the contact injuries. They're lower in contact injuries than everybody else, but they're much higher in soft tissue, and that aligns that you have an approach that is systemically flawed and causing so many soft tissue.
The quote from Jaquaski Tart that you're talking about is on the screen now. I don't know what the 49ers did this past camp, but if we're going based off when I was there, I honestly thought Kyle was saving our bodies, but just being with the Eagles the short time I was with them, it ain't even close. So that is a damning quote. He said, from last year, the Eagles, I think they were number 1 in least injured players this year. I think it's the same. So if we're going off results, pure results, the Eagles, their plan is by far one of the best. They definitely let you rest your body. You're able to be fast and light, not feeling the pressure and the bumps and the bruises throughout the season. It's got to be a combination of things. I'm sure it's not all training staff. I'm sure some of it is Kyle Shanahan and his practice habits and all of that. But what drives me crazy is they're changing nothing. They say they're changing everything. Oh, we change stuff every year, but they never tell you what it is. They never give you an actual example of one thing that has changed. They just say, oh, yeah, we look at everything every year. We change stuff every year. Well, okay, great. Tell us some things so we can give you some credit. Like, I'm willing to give the team credit if they're trying different things and it's not working out. That's a totally different situation. But they never name them. They never get asked to name them. They don't allow follow-up questions. And so we're just sitting here with our thumb up our asses, watching all these guys go down, and we're like, oh, great. Hope running back 4 is ready to go. Hope linebacker 7 can play this week.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that part of that quote aligns with what we have also seen from, like I said, from what you see from the data, higher rate of soft tissue, lower rate of contact, what Chase has said, that they emphasize mass and bulk and being able to absorb things. It aligns with what Kyle has said and aligns with what Tart said. They allow you to be light and fast. Light. They are not pushing you to get bigger. They're not pushing guys to just put on bulk. What did Kyle Shanahan say in his last press conference? Literally just, the one we're talking about. He talked about Ricky Pearsall, and he said, I think he did a lot of things to help prevent injuries this year. He added some weight. He bulked up a little bit more. Those are Kyle's words. So clearly they are instructing these players to do that to prevent injury. Nick Bosa has now torn 3 ACLs. That's not normal. Nick looks every year like he's gotten bigger.
He's
right?
Huge.
He's huge. Like, there's only so much the body can handle. Like, you go back and watch his ACL tear, it wasn't like it got twisted up or mangled up weird. It was him just pushing off of it, and there's a weird, pop in there. Like, it feels like they're trying to get these guys so big and so tough, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that it is causing injuries. Fred Warner's put on like 30 pounds. Now, he's been remarkably healthy, but he didn't bulk up all in 1 year. He has gradually gotten a little bit bigger, but he's still pretty fast and light. He takes care of his body. He does things really well. But you see these guys, they start adding bulk and they start having injuries. Think of Deebo Samuel. He was asked to put on extra weight to be more of a ball carrier. Deebo was constantly getting pulled hamstring, soft tissue injuries, right? Like, this has been the nature of it. You see this with all their players. The 49ers, just, I guess, to put a cherry on top or bow on it. When the NFLPA after last season did their player surveys, every category of the 49ers got an A, except for one. The training staff got a B-.
Interesting. Imagine that. The players are telling you something has to change, even if it's only for appearances, just to put the players' minds at ease, right? Just to say to them, hey, we're trying. We're looking to do whatever we can. Eric Branch asked a question about the stupid EMF station, and the 49ers said, we're looking into it, which is the exact same answer they gave for the first answer when they were asked about, your injury prevention program. They're not looking into anything. They're not looking into anything.
And the fact that we can sit here and go over all this stuff and no one in the room has to follow up. Like, oh, well, we're at the forefront of injury prevention. Okay. And everybody moves on. And then they want to talk about storylines on free agency where they're not going to tell you anything. They want to ask storylines on trades. They're not going to tell you anything. I don't care what they do in free agency and trades, because it's not going to matter if they can't be healthy. Because every year we've said, if this team is healthy, they should be in the run for a Super Bowl. And then we see guys get injured and it derails the whole season. And at the end of the year, the last presser, just like this one, when Kyle's asked about, the season and what they need to do going forward. And he says, well, when you lose, and he gets defensive and he says, when you lose these guys, it's real tough. You just can't replace these kind of guys. And you have all these things, and it goes back to training camp, and guys get behind in training camp, and it's really hard to make that up. You can't do that in the middle of the season. And it's like, okay, so you need to have a better way of making sure that guys get out of training camp healthy, that you get everybody the reps in training camp, that you are a healthy team. Because I don't care what they add in free agency if the guy can't stay healthy. If you don't have a protocol in place to keep players healthy, it doesn't matter what you do with your first round pick if they can't finish the season.
Tim Kawakami has a great article right now saying that the Niners should trade for Justin Jefferson and Max Crosby this offseason. I would love that. Guess what? You do that, you put so much stock in that basket, and then one of those guys gets hurt, which is what happens every year with the 49ers, and you're screwed. And you're back to square one again. Like you said, nothing else they do matters if they can't keep their players healthy. Mike UA says, I should try out. I have no problem putting on weight. There you go. Also, we had a super chat earlier from Dale who said, don't practice with contact or not enough contact. They have to drastically change something. And I really want someone in the 49ers beat to drill down on this, to ask a follow-up. A lot of times what happens is the Niners give you a mic, you ask your question, and they move the mic to somebody else. So the same person can't ask a follow-up. But there's nothing stopping the next person from getting the microphone to say, well, hold on, what do you mean by that? Or hold on, what specific thing have you changed? Because you consistently have these injuries year after year. Are you talking to outside people? Are you talking to other coaches to see what they're doing? Are you we can do this, guys. We don't need to ask about what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk. We know what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk. This is the stuff that matters, and they never get asked about it, and it's infuriating.
I have a theory on that, and that is, training staffs are usually notorious for being sources for different people. And I feel like that there's people that just don't want to press the issue too hard because they're putting some sources in danger if they do. That's just how I feel about it. I may be wrong, but that's just my theory.
But what good is having a source if they don't give you any actual news? The 49ers beat writers never break news about the team. So you don't even get the benefit of having the source.
The only news they break is injuries. That's usually, they usually do have a little bit more detailed info on some of the injuries. And that tells me again that they've got sources in the training room and they don't want to put them at risk.
Honestly, I'm considering trying to get credentialed to go to the combine just so I could get in front of John Lynch and be like, tell me more about this.
If I can get him for a second at the Senior Bowl, I'll do it. Brad and I tried to get him last year, and he was in a conversation with Mike Tomlin and was like, look, guys, I'm talking to coach here. So, appreciate it though. And yeah, we tried.
Yeah. I don't care about anything else with the team. This is it. This is it. It's the biggest problem. It's not the run defense or Christian McCaffrey's house. It's this. You gotta fix this because nothing else matters. Doesn't matter if your scouting is good. Doesn't matter if your free agency moves are good. If you can't keep these guys on the field, it's never going to get any better. And it's about damn time that somebody did something about it.
Yeah. And, I've looked at it from every angle because people will always say, it's this or it's this or it's this. And I've gone through all of it. Like people say, well, when you have an aging roster, you're going to get more hurt. Older players get hurt more often. Look, I ran it on the numbers, and there was a slight correlation to, rate of injury compared to the rest of the league and the 49ers age, but it wasn't consistent. Like 1 year they were a little bit older and they were a little bit less injured. And then the next year they were a little bit younger and they were a little bit more injured. And then the next year they were older and they were a lot more injured. Like that was kind of what happened. It wasn't a consistent trend. Same thing with people say, well, when you play so many playoff games and you have so many deep playoff runs, that adds up. That's more wear and tear on the body. I go, yeah, but think about that for a second. For that to actually have a serious impact, especially when you're talking about all the different role players, then your team has to be static. It has that mileage to add up, has to add up on the individual players, right? So your team would have to have the same roster year over year over year for those extra games to add up. Well, if you go one year deep in the playoffs and you all of a sudden lose 15 guys and you bring in 15 guys who didn't have that wear and tear on the body, that doesn't count for them. Right. And then the same thing next year. It was like when we were in the Super Bowl in 2023, I think there was 5 guys on the roster that had been there in the 2019 Super Bowl. So when you get to 2024, you can't say, well, it's 5 years of these deep playoff runs. No, 49 or 48 of the players on the team
Didn't have those.
weren't there for these deep playoff runs. So like it doesn't compute, like it doesn't add up. Like all these things, they say, well, the team plays more physical than every team. I'm like, look at the Seahawks. The Seahawks are as physical a team as any team in the league. They are really healthy. The Eagles have been a run first team and a physical run first team for a long time. They are still not nearly as injured as the 49ers year over year. The Rams are a physical team. They run a lot of duo runs. They bang it in there all the time. And they are still one of the healthier teams. Like when you just start looking at each one of these different things that people throw out there, even practice being hard. Andy Reid's known as running one of the hardest training camps in the league. Like every year, players are like, yeah, it's like an old school training camp. Like it is the hardest training camp I've ever been a part of. His teams are always healthy. There's something else going on. And it's not luck. It's not all these other things. It begins to point inevitably to one area, and that is the philosophical approach, the way you are going about player health in the building. And the fact, like you said, that no reporter is asking about this and following up and pressing them on this. This was the first time they'd asked about this all year long. Like, why did it take 19 games, 3 preseason games to get to that question, and it's asked once and then moved on and no one follows up? I don't get it.
It's terrible. It needs to, you know what? There are going to be more media sessions. There's more opportunities, and hopefully we can keep putting pressure on them and see it change, because it really needs to. It's incredibly frustrating. And that's it. That's all I got for today. Thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, like the Johnny Dale Football Academy on YouTube for more film breakdowns. We'll try and be more positive in the future. Hopefully there are big trades and acquisitions that we can break down the film on those. But this is where we are right now. So that's what we talked about. But enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Johnny, thank you. We'll talk next week.